So first off, I think it's been a real great pleasure to be on your podcast. Thank you very much for having me. I am very grateful, and I really look forward to this one. And you know, kudos for all the great job you're doing. It's awesome what you do, and this collaboration means so much to me. And thank you.
Hello and welcome to Obehi Podcast. I'm your host, Obehi A14, and I strongly believe that everyone has a story to share. Now let's get started into this episode.
So my name is Michael Ukwuma, and I am a Nigerian researcher and content creator. And well, you could throw in human rights activist in there as well. So I was born in Enugu, Nigeria, and that is a city where I grew up and where I still live till date. So I think I pride myself in saying I'm Nigerian true and true, because a lot of the work I have done have revolved around trying to make Nigeria a better place through the development sector. So I have done a lot of work with young people, especially in the areas of peace building, conflict resolution, crime prevention. I have done quite some work with the criminal justice institutions in Nigeria, trying to improve the system, facilitate reforms, and ensure that we can have a Nigeria that we're all kind of proud about. So I did not always, start off as a human rights activist. As a matter of fact, my training would surprise a lot of persons, because I was in the basic medical sciences back in my university days, and got degrees in human anatomy and public health education. But somewhere along the line, on the innermost part of my being, I've always wanted to be the one who speaks up for change in the society. I've always wanted to, research into some of the causes of things, because growing up, we always wanted to know, why does this exist? Why are things the way they are? Why can things not be different? And some of those questions have stuck in my head and have refused to go away even as I grew older. So somewhere I have learned to tackle some of these crazy thoughts we had growing up, is trying to research, trying to read up, trying to find out from persons who know better, and trying to look at phenomena that exists in nature. It kind of helps me understand the world better, helps me understand people better, and I think that is the force that wants me to do more. It's a force that pushes me, and then it helps me to want to make Nigeria, maybe Africa, and the whole world a better place.
All right, thank you so much for that, dear Mike. I really appreciate the time that you have taken to talk to me about what you do. This is really very fascinating. It's very interesting. Do you want to start by talking about your career development? I think this is very important now for people to understand. Let's go.
So I think I was quite fortunate in my career, because starting off, it was the National Youth Service Corps, and most Nigerians who pass through university systems here or in the diaspora always come back to give that 1 year of national service to the federal government. And I got a chance to work at the College of Health Technology, Ningi, where I was supposed to be teaching anatomy and physiology in line with, my course of study, of course. But, fate has a way of bringing you to the things that you desire the most, because there in that institution was a project of the Canadian National Development Agency. I think it was the primary healthcare development projects they were doing in Bauchi and in Cross River states of Nigeria. And this project was located at the college where I was teaching at the time. Then it was the School of Health Technology Ningi, and would eventually become the College of Health Tech Ningi before we passed out in 2011. And this project involved a lot of training activities for students and for the tutors. And, there were lots of travels, and there was a lot of meetings and developing resource materials and all that. And it was a real great pleasure to have been a part of that. And some of the staff who worked on the project, they were really kind, and they let us participate in some of the activities. And I think that kind of gave me a springboard to launch myself into the development sector, shortly afterwards. Even though, I did like 2 years afterwards teaching in secondary schools where I taught biology to kids. And, those are some of the most memorable experiences that I've had working, because, that's be like the least toxic and the most fun work environment you could ever find yourself in. But even after I left, formal teaching, I have continued to teach in the course of my work. In the past 10 years, I have taught at very different levels, and I've had the chance to interact in learning environments with, real top people in government, top officials in various criminal justice institutions, with other human rights educators from across the world. And I've also had a chance to, teach, students and all whatnot. And I still actively, teach, project management, monitoring, evaluation, and other organizational development learning needs that I'm able to identify and that fall in within my capacities as a learning facilitator. And so I really still enjoy teaching, and I'll always say that should I ever become super rich, I'll probably, go teach for free, because I think that is the one profession that gives you a great present and an excellent future. So everyone should go teach, actually. And then, about the project development aspect of my work. So it's pretty much something I enjoy doing in the course of my work, because when you have conducted your research, you've understood what the problem is, and what that does is, if you've understood a problem, then you can, to a very large extent, predict what a good solution to the problem would be. And so, this problem solution relationship is what enables us to develop real great projects, because then we see a problem and we understand why it exists. We understand its nature. Then we can understand how to compromise that problem. Yeah. And maybe produce a result that everybody would be a lot happier with. And when you've come up with these ideas that form your solution, then the question is, what strategies do we need to apply so that everybody, all the stakeholders, are on board and want to participate in making the solution a reality? Now, where you have real great solutions, chances are you're going to solve your problem real quickly. And applying these very basic principles, I have been able to, participate in developing over 25 projects in the last 8 years alone. And some of these projects were small, at community level, at state level here in Nigeria. But then some of these projects have had, national scopes. I think in 2015 and in 2019, we developed projects that had like international conferences in Abuja, and we had people participating from different parts of the world. And we've had projects that had a national scope. For example, there was a project we did back in 2017 that instituted the gender-sensitive approach to the treatment of women inmates. And with that project, we have the Nigerian Correctional Service now planning better for the women folk and ensuring that they are treated in line with their specific needs as women, and not just the general treatment everyone got before now. And if you look at the Nigerian Correctional Service Act, which was signed into law in 2019, you see this project had a major influence on that act, because there's a whole section now on women and their rights and how they should be treated. And that's something we've never had in any correctional service or prison acts at any point in our history in the past 100 years. So, we've done quite some significant projects here, and I wouldn't want to talk about them all.
Thank you so much for that, there, Michael. That is highly appreciated. All right, service. We could even see that you are wearing the shirt. Do you want to talk to us about that? What does it mean?
Well, SEVICS is an acronym that means Society for Empowering Vulnerable Individuals, Communities, and Systems, and is a nonprofit that I founded in 2017. Well, it's always been a small organization, and there are chances it's going to stay that way because, having worked in the development sector for a while and having worked with a lot of persons, I personally believe, and is in line with, a research that I have done, that sometimes interventions that target single individuals will always be more effective than that targets, thousands or millions of people at once. It's like making medical doctors. You want to have great medical doctors. You're going to realize that, okay, yeah, so when you're having the general courses, you have maybe 100 persons in the room. But at the time they become doctors, you have just a couple of them. By the time they're having their residency, you just have, maybe a handful of persons. And the higher up they go in their training, the more exclusive the trainings become, because there are life-changing principles you can give out to, so many people at the same time. Sometimes having that personal touch, that one-on-one contact might be all you need to affect the change you want in your society. So SEVICS is a local nonprofit in Nigeria, and I don't know, maybe sometime in the future we might find collaborators in other countries and be able to help more young persons to achieve their best potentials, because that is what we're about, helping young persons achieve their best potentials. SEVICS is a non-profit organization, and that implies that a lot of the services that we provide to the community would be relatively free. Yeah, I mean, in the sense that to a very large extent, the community won't have to, pay for the services if we're able to find other persons who would foot the bill, for one. And if for some reason they have to pay for the services we provide, it would be at a very discounted rate. Yeah. So SEVICS tries to work with young people in a number of areas, and first would be education. So our theory is this: education has to be any knowledge that empowers a person. So it doesn't have to be, classroom knowledge of biology and the cell and all those kinds of stuff, like I used to teach some time back. But now we're looking at skills people can make money out of, skills that help them become better people, so it could be workplace skills, it could be some hard skills that you can make money from, like podcasting, like content creation. We teach blogging, how to write, how to start your podcasts. We teach people about YouTube and, generally, content creation and those kinds of stuff, because that is something I am convinced can help anyone get started from where they are, using whatever resources they have at their disposal. Look at the content creation space. People are talking about everything, about the life in a village, about swimming, about fishing, about farming. There is nothing you make content on and people aren't going to love it, People are going to love whatever you put out there. And I'm thinking, so we have a pretty interesting life here in Nigeria. So showcase a bit of what you have and improve your chances of making money. Yeah. Okay. So that's on the one part. But then we also look at a society that is safe for everyone to live in. So we think that if more people are engaged in doing meaningful stuff, there would be fewer opportunities for them to get into trouble. And the other thing that we try to do is this. I've come to look at the nonprofit space, and in line with my desire to provide as much organizational support as I possibly can. We brought this also into SEVICS. So we have the organizational, or what we call the corporate support services, as one of the main things that we provide. So it could be in form of strategy development, or in training, or sometimes helping organizations to brainstorm to find their place in the community, because I think there are so many nonprofits in Nigeria, but then a good number of them have very little idea of what they are doing. The research capabilities are not so good. The organizational development opportunities are not so much. There aren't enough grants for nonprofits to use for their work. And that is simply because there are so many organizations competing for very limited resources. And even in more recent times, with COVID-19 and all that's happened in the global financial space, there isn't so much resources for people to use for their work anymore. So what we're doing at SEVICS is helping organizations improve their visibility, provide training opportunities, organizational capacity assessment opportunities, and all of that. I think these are the two areas where we want to focus now, because initially wanted to do recreation, wanted to do health and all that, but right now we're narrowing down our work to two main items, and that's going to be coming out in the new strategic plan that we are working on. So it's going to be education and organizational capacity development, and these are going to be like the two key things we're going to be focusing on within the next 5 years. I think starting from later this year or early next year. Yeah, so we want to be the nonprofits, and you're going to see a lot of the projects that we're developing in more recent times keen into this ideology. There is the peer ed, which is going to launch very soon, but the other exciting one that is actually in line right now is the Gold Coast. So Gold Coast is for nonprofits, and I think it's going to be probably the first directory site we're going to have for nonprofits in Africa, and we're gonna call on all nonprofits from across Africa, and even nonprofits of African origins but maybe operate in the diaspora. They can all come sign up there, and that would help bring more visibility to nonprofits across Africa. That would help them find partners that can also help them, share the work, the impact that they're creating in the society. And it's also a very good opportunity for beneficiary groups to give feedback on the work that their nonprofits are doing. So it's still work in progress, but then the site is up, and organizations can go now, create accounts and sign up. So those are, kind of like a few of the stuff we do at SEVICS. And
Oh, right. Thank you so much there. Now, I understand that you also work with HundrED. Is that something that you would like to say about that to help people understand what it means and how you guys operate?
now I'm excited about this one. Now, HundrED is an international organization that promotes educational innovations across the world. So it's an organization based in Finland, but the impact of their work is felt, pretty much everywhere in the world. And what they do is phenomenal, because HundrED seeks out local innovations. This could be how teachers in the local school are trying to solve a problem that they have. And now these innovations are all compiled in a platform, and then they are laid out in a way that teachers who are facing similar challenges in other parts of the world can access these innovations, and they can apply them to solve their problems. And that way we can have, more effective, more efficient, more sustainable educational models, not just in some parts of the world where you have better development, but actually everywhere in the world. And that's super, super awesome. So what's my role within HundrED? Okay, so I'm country lead for Nigeria. And the thing is, people can become parts of HundrED in many capacities. People could become ambassadors, and you could be like an ambassador. You could be a youth ambassador if you're like really young. Not like the Nigerian idea of youth, where people in their 80s still claim to be youth. Like a lot of our politicians know. Youth, people under 24. or probably even people under 18, so really young persons. These are high school kids who are passionate about education and want to make impacts in their schools and in their society. And then among the ambassadors, you have country leads, and that's why I come in alongside other country leads from different countries across the world. And what we do is network with the ambassadors we have in our country and try to find a way that we can collaborate among ourselves, improve the quality of the work we do, and then, of course, share innovations with the global community. So HundrED is a really nice organization, and I think it's one of those very silent organizations, at least in this part, that are making real great impacts and that will save education.
All right, now let's talk about something different now. Storytelling. As you will read under here, everyone has a story to tell, and for us, we like talking about story a lot. And now, I want you to talk to me about storytelling, how it might influence your what you do. Of course, I'm trying to understand here what can be the importance of telling of African story. Please help me with that.
So I think of all the questions that you have asked, my friend, this it's probably my favorite, yes, because growing up, I've always had this impression that, just like most Africans or most Nigerians, that the world is a real simple place and we're all the same, yeah, so I hadn't traveled out of Nigeria and I had not met so many people from so many different countries, and that includes Africans, of course, but until I started traveling and I started realizing that even within the African continent, we have so much that unites us, but then we also have so much that divide us. So it's not the same culture, it's not the same ideologies, it's not the same beliefs, but all of these beliefs collectively are different from what you have in Asia, different from what you have in Europe, different from what you have in America. But then I also realized that the narratives of Africans that you get from different parts of the world are going to be different, so the typical European may not perceive a Nigerian as, the best person to do business. I don't know. But, there are stereotypes. That's the point I'm trying to make. And I don't want to be saying anything, I don't want to say... I don't want to generalize. That's what I'm trying to make. I don't want to generalize, but we know that there are stereotypes, and a lot of times a quick Google search, go to Quora, ask if there are Nigerians in Italy or in Germany or in Moscow, wherever, if you read 10 comments, you probably get like 7 negative comments. But, oh yeah, they're Nigerians. Oh, they're really cool. Oh no, they are scammers. Oh no, they're fraudsters. Oh. And so people always try to tell our stories differently. It's like growing up and watching Hollywood movies, and the movies always have a theme where you have people who are barbaric and evil and satanic and cannibals, and then the white man comes and saves them, or the white man's religion comes and redeems them and, brings them civilization. But that's the narrative a lot of us heard growing up. And so, when you go out there in the streets, you're going to hear young people say, our ancestors were bad. Our people were silly. Our people were illiterate. Our people did this and they did that and they did those. But as I grew and I started studying on my own, I started realizing that, man, it wasn't all true. Now, cannibalism is not an African word. Cannibalism is an English word, because sometime before the white man found the black people, there were white people who ate other white people. Oh, yeah. It's a concept that they had. Genocide. Before people talk about genocide in Rwanda, now go to Google, search the word genocide, you're going to find Rwanda. But genocide is an English word because there's been genocides before Rwanda even learned about the concept. Genocide, there were no genocides in Africa in 1945 or between 1917 and 1919 or whatever. We didn't have genocides in the Middle Ages. We didn't have genocides in the second century, in the third century. We didn't, but these were recurring themes you had across Europe. These people fought for 100 years, fought a war for 100 freaking years. So, but they don't tell you about that. So I realized that the European would be quick to tell you what's bad about your culture, but not what's bad about his own culture. He'll tell you what's good about his culture and tell you what's bad about your culture. And the hope is that you can abandon what is truly yours and then embrace what is truly theirs. And that kind of resonates the saying attributed to Chinua Achebe that until the lion learns to write, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. And so unless we learn to tell the African story as a people, we will always suffer. Our development will suffer. Our educational system will suffer. Everything is going to suffer, as a matter of fact. Imagine that you are studying history in Nigeria, and then they're going to teach you, okay, that you guys had the Benin Empire, the Kanem-Borno Empire, and then they'll tell you all the empires fell. And then there was colonization, and then there was independence, and then our history pretty much begins in 1960. Or, well, some people want to trace it back to 1914 with the amalgamation of the northern and the southern protectorates to create the entity called Nigeria, right? But then the people, the cultures that exists in this entity called Nigeria have always been there for thousands of years. Our ancestors have lived on this land. They had cultures. There were people, but all you hear about that is, there were twin killers until Mary Slessor stopped the killing of twins. Until you did your research, then you realize that Mary Slessor did not actually stop the killing of the twins. A local chief did. What actually happened, from the story I learned. Now, I heard a story in Calabar when I visited the Mary Slessor Island, and they showed us what would have been, the place where the lady lived. So it turns out that they had this culture where twins were killed in a particular community. It wasn't a widespread culture across Nigeria. This was in Cross River State, yes? And it so happens that now this chief has this wife who gives birth to a set of twins, and he did not want his twins to die. So what did he do? He saved the life of his twins and started mobilizing support to end the killing of twins. Now, Mary Slessor was a missionary who lived in the neighborhood, and yes, she did talk about these things, and she tried to talk to people about them, but it wasn't her teachings that made the people want to stop it. It's the fact that some powerful persons were affected, and they said, okay, enough of this bullshit. Let's stop it right now, because they didn't want to lose your kids. So when the story is told, Mary Slessor, but then what happens to the chief and his collaborators? What happened to all the other locals who held hands and said, you know what, I think we're done with this, and they changed the culture? Because then if you understand how cultures change, you know that foreigners don't change cultures. The people change cultures, and you find that across so many different tribes. We hear about the fall of the Benin Empire, but would they tell you that the British, robbed and looted the British Empire and stole all their stuff, killed their people, men and women and children? Are they going to tell you that history? No. Are they going to tell you that once upon a time, that the British invaded Nembe and they killed men, women, and children? No. Are they going to tell you that the British killed some of the greatest kings that Africa produced? The likes of King Jaja of Opobo, the likes of Mwanga the second, the Kabaka of Buganda? Are they going to tell you that the British killed the Kabalega of Bunyoro? No, the story goes from Zanzibar to South Africa to everywhere in Africa. They're not going to tell you the atrocities that they have committed. Are they going to tell you that King Leopold killed millions of Congolese people because of the natural resources in their lands, that he cut off their arms and their limbs. He cut them limb by limb until they died. Are they going to tell you that? No. So when when something that is relatively bad happens in Africa, everybody's going to hear about it. But then when it is perpetrated by the Europeans, then no, you're never going to hear about that. So if we're going to tell the history of our people, we have to tell it right. And from our own perspective, the narratives have to change. Our people have to learn to talk better about those things, because, I think it's enough. We've had enough of all of these censoring of what we study in schools, of what we can read up, censoring of what we can find online, censoring of what we think and believe about ourselves, because it's a death of, real, genuine information about who we truly are and what our journey has been. One that really drives me crazy is when they say, oh, the African was illiterate and they had to teach them how to read and write. No, our people wrote Nsibidi, and then Nsibidi was just one of the ancient writing systems coming out of Africa, because when you go from culture to culture, from ancient Kush to Egypt, come down to sub-Saharan Africa, and we had different writing systems that people used to communicate, and some of those writing systems still exist till today. And so when people say, they were illiterate and we taught them how to write, lies, all lies. And so I think I think we need to start working on those narratives and changing them, because it's really crazy. It really is crazy.
You're absolutely right. It's really crazy. That is the right word for it. I really appreciate the contribution that you made there. Okay, now tell me something about the research. How do you research the kind of project that you do?
I guess like most people, we are in universities trying to figure out what the rest of our lives hold. And I think it was in my 300 level, and I was thinking to myself, after university, what next? I didn't want to be an anatomist. Yeah, that's a crazy thing to say. So my parents wanted me to be a doctor, right? I wanted to be, some form of scientist. I wanted to work in the lab, do some stuff, because I remember filling out my first jam form, and what I wanted was microbiology or biochemistry, because then we had these life science books that belonged to my dad, and we studied, and there were all these people who worked with microbes in laboratories and who found a cure to diseases and helped to make the world a better place. That kind of was what I wanted, and then my parents were like, how about you do the whole professional course thing, do medicine or pharmacy, something professional that's going to pay you big bucks. And well, I agreed. I wasn't paying, but then I thought it was a good idea. But then we're going to medical school, and I was like, okay, I don't think I want to be a doctor, so it's a crazy story, but I end up in an anatomy department, and I'm a year away from graduation, and I'm thinking to myself, so what next? So I looked at all of the various research fields that people could get into. And what I said to myself was, well, I think I'd want to, work in humanitarian situations. I'd want to help people out when things go really bad. So while a lot of my colleagues were doing research is in areas of cellular anatomy. They were doing a lot of lab work, sacrificing animals, doing histological studies and all those kinds of stuff. I did biological anthropology, because then I felt, that was going to be really useful and would set me up for a career in the development sector. So that's when I started nursing the ideas of going into community development kind of work. Yeah. So I finished my research on a concept called Comic Index, and it was a real good study. I was like the best research student in my class at the time, and I got published in 2009. And yeah, you could still find my first research online. I think it's published on the Internet Journal of Biological Anthropology. So that was my first research, like my first published research experience, because research is something that has grown to be a part of our lives and our existence, because we always want to question phenomena that exists in our environment and I guess that kind of stuff. So since then, I've done a bunch of other researches, a good number of which are not in the public domain, because when you work in the human rights sector and you are working with very vulnerable groups, there are certain researches you conduct that you do not publish because you might be further exposing the vulnerabilities of the sensitive groups that you work with. So, but there's been quite a number of published research, and one I'm most proud of would be research we did in 2019 for the United Nations Office of Drugs and Crimes on illicit use of codeine and tramadol in Nigeria. It was a large team, but it was a very fantastic experience, and till date, I still conduct, little pockets of research that help me understand better the terrains where I work and help me improve the quality of service that I deliver to all the different groups I work.
Now, do you want to say a word about the objective of service? I understand how you talk about it before, so I want you to spend a word there. Or what can be the objective? What do you want to achieve by this organization, SEVICS?
So SEVICS is a nonprofit that was formulated to create enabling environment for African youth to achieve the greatest potentials, in all facets of life. And we're looking to achieve that through promoting education, improving academic achievement, improving technical skills, individual competencies and capabilities. We also looked at promoting health and then the institutions that support all of this. And then we're also looking at recreation, as a very important part to youth development. But all of that were at the point of a foundation. But like I said previously, right now we're only looking to promote education and to promote, healthy operations among other nonprofits that provide these services, because we've come to learn that no one organization can provide enough services to help everyone. But a lot of times there isn't enough support for all the organizations that want to work in the sector and to provide these services to, all the different groups that they work with, whether they are young people, elderly persons, members of the LGBTQ community, childbearing mothers, or just about any other group you can think about.
All right. Now, how can people connect with you? Those who want to maybe do business with you, or just want to connect with you so they can share your story and do something with you. Can you please share with us what are the ways to reach you?
So there are a bunch of ways I can be reached. First, you can send an email to michael@sevics.org, or you can send the organization an email at sevicsng@gmail.com. Okay, but if you wanted to connect on other social media platforms, you can reach me on Instagram at Michael Ukwuma. Actually, it's Michael Ukwuma on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and pretty much everywhere else. Well, on LinkedIn, still Michael Ukwuma. And if you wanted to reach our organization across social media platforms, it would be at SEVICS Africa on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And you can also check out our YouTube channel. That's also a good way to connect. At SEVICS Africa, that's what the YouTube channel is called. And my podcast is Speak Your Podcast. So you can come by, drop a comment, and we can all talk some more. But pretty much any of the social media platforms would catch my attention, and we can start off a conversation right from there. So I'm looking forward to connecting to all of you. Thank you very much.
If you enjoy this podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. I remain Obehi Ewanfo. Thank you so much for listening, and talk to you in the next episode.